Hey, everybody, welcome to the All Over Overland radio show here on Overland Radio. We are super excited today. We've got a big guest we're going to talk to that I've had a few conversations with, and I got to say, this one is going to be titled The Feels, because that's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into kind of what overlanding or adventuring or camping or whatever your passion may be, what it does to balance yourself and make you kind of feel like you're in a better place. We're going to talk about that. But first, I went to Mountain West Expo in Loveland, Colorado. That's why we didn't have a show last week, because we were coming back from that. And it was a blast. Met a lot of people. Got to actually put faces and shake hands and hug on people that I've had on the show that I had only had this internet kind of connection with. So it was really, really cool to do that. The event was great. I was there with Opus for the most part and learned a lot about the campers, enough that I was able to kind of try and help with a couple of the sales. I hope I didn't screw anything up, but I was able to give experience of driving one of the trailers to the expo, and I've stayed in Lee's Opus 4 quite a few times. So I kind of know how that gets set up and all of that kind of stuff. So what else has been going on? Man, that kind of ruled my world for the last 2 weeks. Lee's not feeling well, so he's at home just kind of relaxing and trying to feel better. But I am drinking his homemade wine. He mistakenly left a few bottles, 5 or 6, in my truck. So he will not be getting those back. I will drink those happily. And yeah, that's just what you get for not being on the show. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull in Matthew. Matthew's with Overland People. You need to go check them out on Instagram. And Overland People is what you want to find and search for. And we're going to bring Matthew in right now. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Michael, good to see you.
Hey,
and
how
that
are you
wine
doing?
Of yours.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we do, like, the people in the chat sometimes will yell and scream for a whiskey shot kind of thing. And since we're going to talk about how it kind of makes you feel, I didn't want to get too drunk, but I think a wine drunk might be perfect for this. So, and this is Lee's homemade wine. So I'm going to test this out and see what we've got going on. Now, you've got something that you're going to drink. What do you have in front of you?
Yes, I've got a hazy IPA from Moab. This is from an event that I had back in first weekend in April for Army Green group that I have of Army Green Forerunners. So nice. We were out there for a few days, and I picked this up when I was out there.
Very good. All right. Well, we're going to jump into this. So, some of my followers might not necessarily know who you are yet. So tell me a little bit about Overland People. And then after that, we're going to kind of get into how you got started in this in the beginning. But let's first talk about Overland People. What do we have going on with that?
Yeah, Overland People, it's evolved over the past year. I got into the overlanding community, and I was mentioning to you before the call very briefly that I'm not a mechanically inclined person. My background has been in technology, and I've done building computers when I was like a kid, but I haven't been very mechanically savvy. And as an example, I had a neighbor a year and a half ago tell me that my tires were bald on my old
because you had no clue.
No clue. Like, a level of awareness was not there.
That's awesome.
And when I got my Forerunner, and I just met a lot of just remarkable people that have been very gracious to me. Not only individuals, but people that were in group settings, Facebook groups. I've met, there's one gentleman, Ben with West Coast Off-Road Adventures, and I've done a couple camping trips with him. And he was on Facebook talking to dealerships on my behalf when I was looking into vehicles, and just really helpful people. Another good friend, Jeff, who has just helped me, and just more savvy than I am. And I've had a lot of just community love, we'll say, in
Gotcha.
this, and I value that, right? Just the sharing of knowledge, the sharing of learning, helping one another out. So fast forward a few months, and all of this help that I've gotten in picking a vehicle and figuring some stuff out. And I asked myself, what can I do to give back? Like, what would I contribute back to this community that's been so great to me? And that looks like technology. Looks like technology that helps. And I'm thinking, well, where is there a need for that? Where can I build something that would be of service to people? And the first project that I'm working on is an off-road recovery network. And I know there's a huge network of different Facebook groups in different states, and that have these different pockets of good Samaritans that will go
Yeah,
out and
but you
help
have to
somebody.
be like connected in that neighborhood to know like what that group is. That's what you're getting at,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. There's a lot of nuance to that. Not only if you just need help, right? Like there's tons of different groups in different states for different regions. So requesting help is one thing. On the flip side, there's the group who's actually people that are willing to drive an hour or two and show up to help somebody.
Yeah.
And that has its own nuance, right? Like in a Facebook group, somebody posts stuff. They don't post when somebody gets recovered. So somebody drives 2 hours. When they get there, there's nobody there. Or there's other dynamics of somebody, just questionable situations where somebody shows up and somebody's not really fit to be driving. And maybe they don't need to get back in their vehicle right now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just different dynamics there. So I've spent dozens of hours talking to groups from California to Colorado and beyond. And I'm working on some technology that will help with that. That'll help just really easily.
So build like
locate
a
somebody.
national like recovery assistance group.
Yes, imagine AAA for off-road, and it's all just Good Samaritan powered, and I'm giving that all away. And I also, as a builder, a 9-year-old kid programming and been doing that most of my life. I just love building stuff, so that's
Gotcha.
one of my ways of giving back. So that's a small snippet. That's a small snippet of what's going on, and similarly tied to that is some community technology to help just with communities and connecting people together. And I've been testing this on an Army Green Forerunner group that I have, and bringing people together. And we've had now 6 or 7 different events across the U.S. and 30,000 miles driven between everybody. And it's been super fun to have these events, have people come together. We all have the exact same 2020 TRD Pro Forerunner in Army Green color. So we've had a drone just follow us in the mountains, and there's all these Army Green Forerunners.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been fun to not only give back in a technology way of connecting people together, but also to give back what the community poured into me, right?
Yeah.
I've been with people that have brought trucks that have never seen dirt, multiple people, and they've attended 3 events from Southern California to Sedona, Arizona to Moab, Utah, and went from like little rocks to we're driving some technical terrain and it's snowing. And it's so fun to give back to a community of things I am very fresh at.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's been really special. Been really special.
I get it. Now tell me, how does and I'm going to be funny. I'm not trying to be mean, but how does a tech nerd get into the outdoors? Like, how does that transition happen?
Yeah. I love the outdoors, and I think I like to say that I believe in the space outdoors, that space that we exist in for a moment in time, and then we have to come back to a place outside of that space outdoors, without being too out there with that comment. But I love that space, just that space of being out in nature. And it goes back to being a kid mountain biking in my local lake,
right on.
Just camping by myself in the mountains for a week, back when I had my sedan and had my mountain bike, and just throw the invite out to a ton of friends. So I was always getting outdoors, whether it was mountain biking or hiking or camping for days on end, alone or with other people. So I thought to myself, a truck is another way to get me outdoors into this space that I love, that space that I exist in. And that's where it started. And a year later, 25,000 miles later, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that and just get outdoors a lot.
Now, obviously, I was being playful with that question, but on a serious note, like, what was your first outdoor experience? Not necessarily overlanding, but was it? You said mountain biking. So, did mountain biking, was that something you did that kind of got you into, well, let's stay out longer? Like what was the point whenever you obviously love the outdoors like so much of us do, but there's a lot of us that aren't brave enough or adventurous enough or whatever it may be. And we'll kind of dive into that a little later. But what was it that kind of made you, or when was it that you decided, I want to spend more time than just a day outside?
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember about 6 years ago, I started spending a week in Southern California in the mountains at a time, where every year I would just book a week, sometimes 10 days. And regardless of who came, there was probably times where I was 7 days by myself. Sometimes I had friends drop in, sometimes family drop in. But I think that was one of the moments where I was deliberate about booking time for me, right? We can get more into this, but I sometimes feel like I've had a lifetime in my earlier version of life, just feeling disempowered and doing things for everybody else. Some might call that a people pleaser. So transitioning to doing things for me and learning who I am in that space outdoors. And it was not just for me, because at the end of that time in that space, it's who I am for those people around me, for my friends, for my family, for those I love. So I think if I answer that question, that transition happened when I started taking more me time.
Gotcha. Totally understandable. So like, I know that for a lot of people that listen, and a lot of people that do this, they get wrapped up into their regular lives. And there's a quote about, a man living a life of quiet. Oh gosh, I totally went blank, but I mean, it's quite desperation, or just like they feel like there's nothing in this world than going to work, coming home, sleeping, and going back to work. And so there's a lot of men that are in this area of, men and women, but that are in this area of, what does my life mean? And what's the meaning of just going to work, and not having a passion outside of that, and then not being able to reach that passion or to channel that passion, which obviously you're doing with Overland people.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're saying this too. I had a tech company previously for 10 years, and I burned myself out. I shut that down in 2013. I was on a walk in June, and I remember walking at night. I was in Orange County, and I remember walking around 9:30. I would go on a walk at the end of the day to de-stress. That was one of my attempts of just creating space for myself. And I think a lot of my camping started happening after that, now that I think more about that. And asking questions of like, what do I value? What do I believe? What kind of world do I want to exist in? What kind of world do I want to advance? And the distinction for me is there's the world, and there's me thinking I should be doing everything that I thought I need to be doing. And then there's my world. And I love the distinction of the world versus my world. And if I may have a little interjection of like COVID life here.
Totally. Go for it.
That's even been more important for me, to just pay attention to that dynamic of the world versus my world. And there's empathy in that space, I think, but there's also just the very realness of what I can influence and who I want to be in this space, right, in this moment in time. So asking these bigger questions and just starting to create my world. And I think camping has done a lot of that for me. I mentioned I've driven a ton of miles this past year. I haven't listened to any podcasts in any of that. And I grew up in my last company, like very overstimulated.
Yeah.
So with just intake of just media and podcasts and, Audible, I've got like one of the high badge, probably like majority of the badges on Audible for however many days of audiobooks I've listened to. But the past 25,000 miles, it's like just me and myself and my truck and thoughts, right? And just creating and playing of like the kind of world that I want to live in. And that's really fun for me. I love playing in that space.
So Lester, a listener that's on here quite a bit that I've hung out with, has this. It's Henry David Thoreau. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, which is called I don't have my glasses on. Well, anyway, you guys can read that in the chat. It's long. So
you want me to take it over? I could.
Okay. Oh yeah, take over if you want. If you can see it, read it. Okay.
So let's see here. I can't. Is that a glasses? No glasses, or is it the wine? Is this the wine kicking in, Michael? No, I'm just kidding.
This might be a little bit of both. I have been. I'm about halfway through this homemade bottle of wine. So yeah.
Nice. All right. It says the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city, you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. A stereotyped but unconscious despair is concealed even under what are called the games and amusements of mankind. There is no play in them, for this comes after work, but it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate. And then Lester's blaming the wine.
Yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, it's the wine. So
Thank you, Lester.
Yeah. And then I got to give a shout out to a buddy of mine, Whitebeard. You know, he was like, homemade wine? Laugh out loud. So yes, homemade wine. I did not make it again. This is from Lee. I stole it from him. Kind of. I mean, he did place it in my truck, so I don't think that's stealing, but I'm drinking it regardless. So that's just where we are with that. But I really like that quote, and I actually heard that on Joe Rogan's podcast, and it just kind of hit me. You know, he has a lot of those moments of inspiration, and you know, I mean, as a podcaster and as a guy that does interviews, you know, he's one of those that I kind of look at as far as he's just doing it right. I don't always agree with what he's saying, but I find myself agreeing with more than I thought I would sometimes, and I just always that quote when he said it just spoke to me in a way, you know, because you and I kind of connected because I kind of posted something about the journey and you know, and how it changes you. You know, it's not just about the cool places that we go to, but it's about how getting away from things and connecting to, you know, we're connected to the internet. We're connected to social media all the time. And when we get away, we tend to put those things away a little bit. Now, people like me that are always taking pictures and posting and stuff, yes, not so much, but it's still, there's something that just you feel. And sitting at a campfire at Mountain West on Saturday night, Tommy with Colorado Campworks asked me a question. We were standing kind of outside of the circle a little bit, and he goes, what do you get out of overlanding? Like, what do you get out of it? And I just told him that it makes my soul feel better. You know, it just, and whatever your soul is for you, the inside, the inner peace, the inner demon, the inner dragon, the inner Viking, the inner whatever it is, it just calms that down. And I can't even fully in words explain it all the time. But that's what I get out of it.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a feeling, like it's in your body more than it's in your language.
Yes. Yeah.
I could see that. And was it always that, or has that evolved, would you say?
It's completely evolved. You know, yeah. I think, well, let me go back. So I did some hiking. I've done some mountain biking and all that kind of stuff. Now, whenever I first started doing that, it was to arrive at the destination or to complete the task. You know, that's what it was. And at some point, and I can't tell you, well, no, I can tell you, I was hiking at Eufaula near the dam. And there was a place that I was on this cliff, kind of a ledge, and I was overlooking the dam, the lake, the dam, and where the water came from the dam, you know, the river that was coming out of that. And there were some bald eagles just flying right below me. Wow. You know, just kind of hovering, just kind of circling right there. And that's when it kind of hit the spirit side of me, the soul of me, you know, and that was way before overlanding stuff. I was probably 20 years old. And so that was way before all that, but that was the first time that I remember feeling something different than just this is a
Hmm.
way to exercise, or hey, I accomplished 10 miles today, whatever it may be. I rode my bike faster than I have on that trail. It was always that before, but after that experience, it became something different. Now, did it change me completely then? No. I mean, I went back and forth, to that feeling and just, kind of screwing around. And it wasn't until I started all over Overland and took my daughter out with me the first time and saw the unbridled joy that she had in being outdoors and finding bugs and all that stuff, that I was like, there's something bigger here than what I've ever experienced. And since then, I've really tried to tap into that side of my life and what it is for me.
That's cool. That's cool. Have you asked what overlanding has looked like for her by any chance, or has she ever openly shared that?
I haven't, and that's something that she's 10 years old now, and so,
okay, so
she's getting into that. We're starting to have more in-depth conversations about things, like more meaningful, deeper conversations. So now that you say that, that's going to be on my list of questions the next time that we're out and we're watching fireflies or something like that. Kind of like, what does this mean to you? Like, what is this? Is this just going and camping? Is this just hanging out with dad? Or is this something that you feel different out here than you do when you're sitting in your room? Like, start those questions small, so that she can understand and evolve with it as well.
That's cool. It makes me think about the different places that we go, and just the idea that we're always creating new relationships with these spaces, right? These different, like I'm sure if you were to name top 5 places you've been to that you've only been to maybe once, but you have this relationship with this moment in time in this space, and you created that in an adventurous way.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say it that way, because when I think of a place that I've gone to, I don't think of it as a place on a map. And I don't only think of it as an experience, but I think of it, and this is going to sound corny as hell, but I think of it as almost like a friend. Like there was a connection there that was made. The Enchanted Rockies trail is one of those. There was a place that we camped that was 12,000 feet in the Carson National Forest that was unbelievable. And to this day is my favorite campsite that I've ever camped out in my life. And that whole experience was more than just, here's a spot on the map that I went to.
Right.
Right. And when I do go back, it's going to be nostalgic. It's going to be more than just, hey, there's the dirt that we camped on. Hey, there's the view that we had. It's going to be, I think it's going to be more breathtaking the second time, because the weather could be different. The light might be different. Everything about it, the trees will be a little different shade of green or yellow, brown, whatever time of year it may be. So it grows and lives and evolves as well, but it's going to be relatively unchanged, but changing and evolving at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's fun. And I don't think it sounds corny. It sounds like it's nostalgic because you're visiting an old friend again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like going back to a house that you grew up in that you haven't been to in 20 years, and you hear, rock stars and movie stars talk about it. They go to the house that they grew up in, and, and we're like, oh, that's so cool. Well, we can do that too. We don't have to be rock stars to have that feeling. and there's just some weird connection that happens with a place that's not totally and completely different than a connection you may have with a person.
Yeah. No, I could see that. I'm also seeing here, Lester sounds like it's the experience of new places, old places rediscovered, and people that's known and new friends to make. And then Chad had said, the different people you meet and communality, being communal with other people.
Yeah, being communal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then family time. Yeah, the people too. It's like there's the space, then there's the people you're with, and like I've been some places just with strangers I've never met, and we're having just fascinating conversations about life, or somebody sharing a story. And there was one couple I remember. She was from the UK and he was from India, and I don't remember what thought crossed my mind or how I came to the question, but I had asked them, what did camping mean in the UK, or what did camping mean in India? And the guy was like, in India, you don't say that you camp because that means you're homeless.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting to just the perception of this thing that we're doing, right? And
well, think of boondocking 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The man that lived down by the river. That wasn't something we aspired to, and now it's something we aspire to.
Yeah.
It's totally, hey, so we had talked about, so you've got a company that you work with that you get these awesome products from.
Oh,
and
yes.
You were so nice to have them send me a couple of these, and it's Get Out gear. And these are down puffy blankets. I got a down puffy blanket. They've got, I think, a synthetic, a down. Are there different kinds? I can't remember.
There is there's down, and then there's synthetic. Synthetic does a little bit better with water, but those are the two versions. And there's a handful of different colors in those two versions.
And you've been so nice to offer to give a couple of these away today.
Yes, I have.
And we were talking about how to do this, and I'm gonna throw a curveball. Because I had that quote that I was wanting to do. I say we give Lester one of these because he found that quote and put it out there. If you're cool with that, I think Lester gets the first one. So Lester, what I need you to do is, well, you're going to be able to find it. Go to Overland People on Instagram and send Matthew a message and say, hey, I'm Lester, and Matthew will get all that taken care of. We're going to give a couple more of these away. And we had talked about kind of different things that we're going to do to give these away. So I'm not going to throw that out there, but make sure that you don't go anywhere, because these things are awesome. Like, they pack up real small, and they actually have snaps on them. So you can wrap it around you and sit at the campfire or sit out somewhere and still have it around you. They're amazing. So I'm blown away. So yeah.
Yeah. And a quick little message on him too. So the founder of that company is named John. I was camping up in Big Bear Lake in Southern California, and I'm like miles in the mountains on dirt roads, like at 8,000 feet overlooking a vista, getting ready to camp. This guy rolls up with his Tesla up in the mountains, and he was taking pictures of his blanket, and he was using what he had to get to where he was going to take these photos. And he camped that night, and he came over our campfire. We hung out, and fun fella who shares similar just feels, I think, as this message. And he has a background in corporate life and decided he wanted to do something more meaningful to him. And he's been on this journey with Get Out gear. So also great guy, great friend. And that's when I first met him. So yeah, would love to give out some more. And
okay,
Lester,
we'll do that. So everybody gives me crap because I call Lester, and he goes by Skip. And I know this, but I still call him Lester. And that's just because it's the way I am. And I'm calling him Lester. So someone chimed in and said, for the love, could you just please call him Skip? And I was like, I do what I want, man. Oh, that's his son. That's so funny.
That's funny.
And a buddy of mine, I'm going to throw this up on the screen so everybody can kind of read it. A buddy of mine put a quote in here, and him and his daughter have started hiking, and they started hiking after he lost his wife. So they started taking road trips. It's right there to escape. Hiking became a challenge, but one day of silence of the woods changed everything. He spent 5 days at work waiting for the next weekend. And, that's one of the things that you and I kind of told you a little bit about. And I've got a podcast that I just released about it, which is the Overland letdown. We come back from a camping trip and we've got that high euphoria. And I've talked about that we're all storytellers because we go on these trips. And the first thing that we want to do is tell everybody about the experience that we had, whether we just want people to be inspired to go on their own journey or we just need to share what it meant for us. But I think there's also for a lot of people, and I've experienced this, there's a letdown after a couple days where if you're not able to do this often and you're looking for the next adventure, you kind of start feeling sad or lost a little bit. And, you're like, why aren't I doing this more often? Why aren't I out there more? But, the struggles of life and, paying bills and all that kind of stuff keep a lot of people from being able to do it as often as they'd want. So there can be this thing that no one ever talks about, which is the letdown of when you're sitting at home and, you're having to clean the bathroom. You're having to do those mundane tasks. And although those are all important, they're not fulfilling. And there's just a lot of people that, like I said, the quiet desperation, it's part of that. So there's a letdown to it. And I just wanted the people to know that I go through that process also. If they do it, if they do it at all, if they're sitting at home sometimes and maybe they get upset or not really upset, but a little jealous of people that are able to do it full time. And like, why can't I do that? We all go through that. People that are weekend warriors or once a month or once a quarter, kind of thing. And they can be just little day trips. So even if you're able to get away for a day, do it, that'll help quite a bit. But anyway, it's interesting that he's chiming in on this and talking about how, losing his wife, that's something him and his daughter did to escape, but then they found something else while they were there.
Yeah. It makes me think of a time I was traveling for several months, and I was back in 2012, and I was repeating back to a friend that I loved this mode of travel because I had no plans. I was just existing. I would meet an interesting author at a bookstore or a coffee shop, and then we'd have lunch, and I'd hear about this guy's book that he was writing that he was really into. And I remember sharing with this friend about the spontaneity of that form of travel. And this was pre-truck, pre-overlanding, anything. And his comment was like, that sounds really childish. And it was, I felt a little bit of a negative connotation when I had made that comment. He was he was a bit older.
Youngster.
It was a long time ago. And he, I just remember hearing him say that. And I think about just this idea of overlanding. I'm looking at Justin Pepper's comment too. He said he loves the solitude of being in nature with no one around and taking it all in, and the journey of undiscovered areas and sites that very few will get to see. There's something to sitting in that space of novelty, I think. And it's unplanned. It's spontaneity, whether it's with self or with wildlife or with weather, right? There's these different elements. And to what I'm hearing from you, Michael, about the great letdown and what that looks like. I know for me, one of my fun muses / forms of play is taking that space that I exist in outdoors and that calmness that I have, or the excitement or the awe, and attempting to hold that space. Mm-hmm. It's like the greatest art for me. The art of living for me is like holding that space and attempting to bring that into wherever I go, so that I don't go back to the quote unquote grind and then put on a different hat, right? Like I remember this one time where I was having to make some work related calls or something. And I thought, what if I saw these phone calls like I saw a trail that I hadn't been down
Mm-hmm.
on a trip, and just that same sense of I wonder what's going to happen, and just that sense of curiosity. It
Yeah.
was just a fun inner muse for me. Does that resonate?
No, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In fact,
It's fun.
one of the things that when you were saying that kind of hit me was, I've talked to a lot of people that, I'll say, hey, we're adventurers or we're explorers or something like that. And somebody goes, well, somebody's already been there. And I say, yeah,
Mm,
but I haven't. I may have seen the picture of that place, but I haven't felt what that image is from the picture.
mm,
You can't, the smells, the sounds, the tininess that you feel when you're standing, at the base of a mountain, or something, and you're just looking up and you're just like, it's really that high. It's really,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
really like you look up and you're just like, it's really, or you look down because you're up on it and you're like, wow, just wow.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like going to the Grand
yeah.
Canyon, and then you're like, it's a big old hole in the ground. But it's more than that because you're looking at it and you're just like, it's so big.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in
that's
a picture that we all saw as kids will never do it justice until you're standing right on the edge of that,
mm,
And
hmm,
so a lot of times whenever I'm talking to young, and I say young, meaning they're newly into this overlanding journey themselves, for me, overlanding is not just about getting to a place where there's no one around. It's, or even just going down just a dirt road. It's the little town that you go through on your way
mm,
there. The little community that has its own personality that is totally different from a community 500 miles away. So as long as you get off the 4-lane highways, the 6-lane highways, and you're on
yeah,
little 2-lane highways that used to be traveled a lot, that go through a town, stop in that town and have dinner, have lunch, go to the store, just kind of look around a little bit. They all have personalities. And to me, that's what it is also, in that journey. And yeah, somebody might say, well, why would you think that's a big deal? Well, I haven't been there. I haven't experienced that. I haven't seen those people. I haven't, you know, there's even little communities that are German communities. We have them in Oklahoma, they have them in Texas, and there's other different ethnic groups that have places where they came over and they settled there, and they had
hmm,
their friends come and meet. Like they built a community based on that, and the architecture is that way. The food, they have a bakery that it has traditional food that is not necessarily American food, but those things I think are unique to the United States. When people say that, there's a lot of people that say you're not overlanding if you've only been in the United States. And I'm like, this is the biggest melting pot in the world. Like, this is
right,
where
right.
you're going to be able to experience every different culture, if you set out for that adventure, so, and I'm not saying that going to the remote places on the remote roads is I'm not saying that's not the way to do it. That's definitely an experience, and that we all do that. But don't forget the little, we talk about the little towns in between whenever you're flying.
Hmm.
The layover towns, the towns that are the flyover towns that no one sees, but they go over it. You know,
Yeah,
experience that.
yeah, yeah.
Feel that.
I like what you said along the line of feel that. I heard you say earlier you haven't felt that image before,
Yeah.
and I love that. I think, I know for me, there's something about just being in my body, right, versus my mind. I sometimes think I like mountain biking because physical presence is required. I can't be, daydreaming about something else when I'm riding my bike down a mountain with exposure on the left and there's rocks on the
Oh
rest and
yeah, you
roots
got
and
to be
stuff.
focused
So
for
I
sure.
have to be there,
Yeah.
And makes me think about the just uh, just being in my body more on trips. I have a friend who has um, a Frenchie, a French bulldog,
Yeah.
and there's two of them. There's two of them, and one of them, they're siblings. One of them seems like the younger sibling because it is slower than the other one when I throw the ball, and its body awareness just isn't there. He has jumped off a 4 foot ledge. he's he's been chasing the ball and he'll do a barrel roll and just
Oh,
completely roll
yes.
over it. Like, and it's hilarious. But I think about just the body awareness and even just being in a truck. And I mean, even at some level being kind of connected to the truck and knowing that, hey, my wheel is going to go over this rock, right? And just the intake of that.
Okay, but
Hmm.
let's dissect that a little bit. Yeah, and
Okay.
this is the artist and the photography side of me that comes out every once in a while. So forgive me, but let's dissect
Bring
that a
it.
little bit because you say being hyper focus, kind of like on riding the mountain bike, that you got to be tuned in, but you feel the bike, you feel the trail through the bike. So you feel through that instrument just like we feel it through our vehicle. You know, you feel when the wheel gets up off the ground, and it kind of teeters a little bit.
Hmm.
You feel if the ground is soft, you feel if the ground is hard, if it's forgiving, if it's not forgiving. You know when you're going to get stuck before you get stuck because you feel it. You don't
Yeah.
you don't necessarily
Hmm.
see it because it can always look different. But you
Hmm.
can definitely feel it. And I mean, some people will say, well, I didn't know I was going to get bullcrap. Yes, you did. I don't believe it for a minute. Every time I've ever been stuck, 30 seconds before I got stuck, I was like, nah, I'm about to get stuck. Like I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Huh. Huh.
it's kind of like whenever
That's
I told you that, Tommy asked me what I get out of overlanding. And I said that, it makes my soul feel good. Well, he mentioned that to the guy standing next to him. He was like, well, kind of did one of those. And I said, let's dissect this a little bit. I can say that I like the way it smells. I can say that I think it's pretty. I can say that I like being disconnected from the rest of the world. I can say
hmm.
that, but it's always more than just that. You know, Sometimes people can't say it in words. They take a picture of it and that's kind of the way they express it, or they paint it, or they write a story about it, a poem, a song, whatever it may be, or they just stare into the campfire. Like when you're staring at the campfire, your mind is completely somewhere else,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
So it's more, you don't get that from sitting at home in your kitchen, or in your
Right.
living room. You don't get that same kind of feeling. If anything, you long for something else. And we're lucky enough that we have an outlet and a passion that we can go and pursue those feelings, go and pursue
Hmm.
what it is that through the, let's say it's weeks, your trips are weeks or months apart, all the people that flipped you off on the road and all of those things that happen in normal day-to-day, just every annoyances, kind of, they're gone, and that's more than just what it smells like. That's more than just, the smells and all that kind of stuff are things that trigger memories later,
Right. Right.
but you get wrapped up in the feels of it.
Would you say that you've had similar feels with the journey of photography or with your journey of mountain biking?
Um, I mean, honestly, not near as profound.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, in a way. I mean, there's a few times mountain biking that I stopped on the trail and
Yeah.
I sat on a rock and a bird landed next to me or whatever it may be. That was just like, and then you start talking to this bird. It's weird. It's a weird deal. But those times, yes, that kind of feeling happens. But whenever I'm writing, I feel connected, but it's not that spiritual kind of thing that I think I get from whenever I slow everything down.
Yes, I like this. I'm tracking with this. I'm reminded of again my last company, and even I'll say my rough draft version of life of just moving quickly. The running joke for me in high school was uh, the world's running on dial-up, Matthew's running on DSL. And it's because I took pride in moving quick and doing things quick. And that manifested in everything, whether I was walking or driving or eating or talking or thinking. And at some point, I had to learn to slow down.
Yeah.
And I made a game out of it. I mean, I have moments where I would go to the grocery store and I would walk so slow deliberately to the front of the grocery store that I would be in the parking lot by myself just laughing at how slow I was physically moving in space. And it's been a journey of just deliberately getting in the slow lane and just driving slow and just there's a certain level, and maybe I alluded to it earlier, of presence that I think I'm moving into, right? And there's tons of books, and it's probably self-help's probably $1 billion industry on just presence and what that means in today's world. But I know for me, just learning to slow down, I think like you touched upon, hits the nail on the head, because it's not, for me, it hasn't just been about moving quickly. It's like I want to learn to savor the time, right? The time that I would savor if I'm out in front of the campfire, mind wandering.
Yeah. Well, and you said something, you said presence, being present. And I think that's like the hack, right? Is finding out how to be present, finding out how to be present with your kids, not just, like there's a funny comedian that talks about, and I think it may be Kevin Hart, where he talks about how men watch their kids. And they're sitting on the couch and the kids are playing in another room, and it's like they're just listening for something to happen, and they hear something happen. Like, hey, you better not be doing that. Better not be breaking anything. They don't get up and check. They just yell, but they're not present with their kids. Just like there's people that probably go out on trails and go overlanding, go mountain biking, go hiking or whatever, and they're just, because they're not able to release everything that's problematic in their life, they're not able to be present. And I think that's the hack, is to be able to figure out a way to be present whenever you're in those situations. And it could be, like you said, just walking slowly through the grocery store. You're present, you're observing things, you're taking in your surroundings, you're part of it rather than just rushing through it.
I heard you say not being able to release everything in life, and man, that's probably, and I don't know if this interweaves with the Overland letdown concept, but the notion of letting go wholly, like in a full way, right? Letting go / I heard you say releasing everything in life so that I can be present, right? Is part of the muse there.
Well, and we all have to go through a pain to be able to figure that out. Yeah. And I'm pretty happy-go-lucky, but I've had my share of hard times and sadness and things that have happened. But I'm weird in the way that I accept those and I cherish those, because I'm able to discover more than I am when everything's wonderful, and then I'm able to really, really take in the times when everything is peaceful and calm, rather than still just focusing on negative and stuff like that. Like, you've got to be able to let it go, but you've got to have something to let go,
Right.
The yin and the yang, that's you have to, unfortunately, you have to go through hard times to be able to know what good times are, You know,
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
to lose before you really understand what winning is. If you win all the
I'll use
time,
it.
you
Yeah.
don't get it.
I'll use it. I'll use a photography analogy that you can track with is having something to let go adds contrast
Yeah.
to life, right? It adds that
Saturation, add saturation to it,
yeah,
you know?
give some
Yeah.
color, some vibrancy. Huh.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's interesting. So, yeah, those are the things that, and again, you know, I've been into the art scene, and I've written and I've done poetry and, you know, all those kind of things in the past. And I think that probably allows me, in my mind, allows me to be able to really recognize some of
Mm.
these things more clearly and quicker sometimes. Now, I'm a big ADD guy. Like it's fully in my body, you know, and in fact, I was married once before, and she made me go get tested because I forgot to take the trash out. Well, they found out that I was in the 95 percentile, and they were blown away I wasn't in prison. Like,
Oh
because
God.
that's how bad, like on paper, that's how bad it
Yeah.
was. And so they were like, how were you able to manage this? And it was like, art, I think, is the way that I was,
Mm.
expression, you know, is the way that I
Yes.
was able
Yeah.
to manage that in a way, you know, and not be on medication and not, you know, and I've never done it. I've never, it's not something that I've ever used. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've gotten high more than once in my life, and that helps quite a bit. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm open to it. And I hope that
Yeah.
in the talks that I have and the talk conversations that we have that people are listening to and will listen to later on, that maybe it kind of makes them think of things a little differently. I mean, that's the whole point in kind of my journey in this lately is to inspire people, to connect people, to build a community, to you know, for me, build a legacy that, you know, whenever I go to, you know, Mountain West in 30 years, they'll be like, oh, that's old man Hayden over there. You know, that's the, you know,
Yeah.
like he's one of the reasons why I'm here, you know, kind of thing. Um, you know, never, it's not to get rich. I mean, look, I don't get paid doing this. So it's not that we do this for a paycheck or anything like that. We do this because it's something in us needs this to happen, you know. And
Yeah.
if I need it to happen, I know there's other people out there that need it to happen as well.
Yeah. I love that, and I appreciate you sharing what served you. I heard you mention art and writing and expression, and on the topic of releasing things or letting go. I know a lot of that has served me as well. Just writing and getting things out of my system. And I'm sharing this because I think if somebody's like, "Hey, I want to enjoy overlanding more," right? And you and I are sharing tools that people can use to do that, to perhaps release or see self differently via writing or art. I think that's fun. Have you always been into art, or was there a season of your life where art and writing
Ever
kind of
since
came
I
into
was
the
a
mix?
little kid,
Ah, okay.
I was the kid that would lock myself up in a room and draw, you know, and that's just what I did. And in fact, my father's a photographer. I never thought that I would be a photographer. I was in the honors art program whenever I was in junior high and high school. And I never even thought about photography as a medium of art, you know, until my dad took me out and gave me a 35 millimeter camera, put some black and white film in it. And he goes, just go take pictures of stuff. So we went on a road trip and we stopped at different places, and I'd get out and just take pictures of what I thought was interesting. And I just kind of haphazardly, you know, made some prints with my dad because he had a studio in a dark room and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And I still didn't know technically what I was doing. I just followed his lead. You know, I just followed what he was doing and did what he told. Well, I submitted one of those photographs for my art project that 9 months. And my art teachers only kept two, well, at that time, only one other person that had gone through school, and she'd been a teacher for 20 something years. Only kept one other kid's art and put it on her wall. Well, she took one of my photographs. She was like, I would love to hang this on my wall. Can I have this? And I was like, do I get an A? She goes, yes. So, that and that was before I really got into photography, because that was in junior high. And then I didn't get into photography until after I graduated high school and had been in college for a little bit, and kind of thought, well, let's try this photography thing, and took a few pictures and got a job working at a different studio to learn that was more high volume. And so I got my numbers, the number of shots that you take. I got those numbers up. And then I went back to my dad's studio that was more of a professional portrait, kind of studio. And Abe was really able to work the craft and learn what I was doing, but I'm still not a technical person. Like, people start talking about, ratios and stuff like that. And I go, I just do it, whatever makes it look pretty, and I joke around, but I mean, there's something visually that I see, in it, that I think people struggle for. I always thought everybody could draw. Like, it still blows my mind that people are like, I can't draw worth crap. And I'm like, I quickly do a 5-minute sketch, and, somebody's like, hey, that's really good. And I'm like, nah, that's just scribbles. That's nothing, that I'm embarrassed that you even saw that kind of thing. So yeah, I've always been in the art kind of stuff. I told my mom whenever I was in junior high that I wanted to have a photograph that won an award. I wanted to have a painting that hung in a gallery somewhere, and I want to write a book, and I want to write a song. Like, those are things in my life that I have to accomplish. And I've done 2 of those so far. I've had a picture whenever I was in junior high hang in a gallery. We entered it into a thing through school, and it got accepted and hung at an art gallery for a weekend or something like that. So nothing major, but I'm holding on to that. And I've won an award with a photograph, and it's in the International Photography Hall of Fame. And I'm working on books, and I wrote so many songs, but I can't sing worth a lick. So I don't, it's one of those are the 2 things I'm still working on, but it'll happen. Yeah, I'll make it happen.
The thoughts that are connecting for me right now, Michael, I think when we first connected, your original sentiment was how we talk about how we see the physical changes to somebody's vehicle, but what we don't often see is the inner journey. I think that was the first video that I connected with you on. And right now, the themes that are coming up for me that we're discussing are presence, and then this most recent theme of self-expression. I wonder how much overlanding as a portion of the pie involves a level of self-expression, even if it's to say, like, I am an adventurer, right? Or I am a weekend warrior, whatever that looks like. And just the value of that, right? Forget being alone in front of a fireplace. Just the value of being able to express self in a space is
well, and to be fair, our vehicles are a process of that as well. Most vehicles are different, and the little things that we've done to a vehicle that are kind of our little touches, those are the things we show off. Everybody, I say everybody, people have ARB bumpers, like, you didn't build that, you just put that on there. But the way you hang your, paper towels, now that's something else. You came up with that, like, if you didn't just buy it, so there are expressions in that, the way you set up your lighting, or, whatever, the way you set up the way you set up your camp kitchen whenever you stop. Like, whenever you get everything out, the way you set everything up, it kind of probably shows us kind of the way you process things. Like, I think a psychologist could look at some of these things and go, I've got a lot of questions. This is what I think's happening in your world. You are this type of person. I think it'd be interesting that may be something fun to
Maybe fun.
to bring somebody
Yeah.
that like, hey, look, I want you to explain, to just look at a camp setup and tell me if you can see things that, okay, well, you have your cooking gear and I'm going off on something I'm not
Right.
knowledgeable about, but it'd be interesting to see what people would think, a psychiatrist would think of why we do these things. I mean, I know why I kind of think it, but it'd be a trained professional. It'd be something different. And then I'd probably go like, you're full of shit and walk off.
Love it. Justin Pepper's chiming in. He's saying vehicles are often a self-reflection, either it be a rig or race car. We often express through mods. I love it. It's at some level, it's like overlanding is our own art in a safe place.
Well, and okay, so I'm obviously a different kind of breed of cat. I started off with the Jeep Liberty. Nobody runs Jeep Liberties, not very many people. And whenever I got rid of that and decided to get something else, I just couldn't do the rig that everybody buys. So I got a Nissan Frontier. There's not as many out there.
Nice.
And it was the biggest bang for the buck. Let's just be honest. I'm cheap. But it's still different enough that I can show up to a trail with a group of people, and I'm probably the only one in a Nissan. There's just not very many of us. And there's a few that I've connected with, but that again is another kind of thing. Like, do you want, maybe that's me trying to set myself apart from everybody else. And maybe some people want to fit in. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but some people want to fit in or feel like they're going to be more included in a group if they get the normal popular vehicle, to kind of fit in, to kind of find that space. It's like rooftop tents. There's so many brands, but there's people that are like, oh, well, I got a 23-0 because Johnny has a 23-0 and and I've got a quick pitch, and there's not a lot of people that have a quick pitch. There's just,
I'm tempted to talk more, but the words that's coming up for me, and maybe we'll shelf this for a future part 2 of this.
We're gonna definitely have to do this more.
The phrase that's coming up for me, and I've got my own story here that I can openly share too, of just belonging, right? And I think I'll just leave it at that. but that's a whole nother thread to how that influences the feels, right? But yeah, I think I'm open to continuing, Michael. I don't know. I could give away the blankets, and we could.
Okay, so let's give away another blanket. We've been on unbelievably for a little over an hour, and I don't know that we're done yet. So let's give us at least another 10-15 minutes, but let's do quickly and give away another blanket. So what we want you to do is we want you to hashtag get out gear. So the first person to hashtag get out gear in the comments will get a blanket. Go. We'll give that a second. So we've got a few people still in chat. So if it happens, if it doesn't happen, then we'll just keep the blanket. And well, there it goes. David gets one. Dave gets one. Yep. So Dave, awesome. If you will go to Overland People and send Matthew a message, I think that'd be the best way to do it, because then that'll directly link you to Matthew, who can get you that. So and it'll always be in the chat, so we can make sure that the right Dave sends you the message that, hey, I was the Dave that won the thing. And if you're not on Instagram, that's fine. We can find you from the chat here. So no worries. Damn it, so Dave.
Dave was quick. He was quick. Dave is actually a gentleman that has showed up to 2 of our events.
Oh, nice. That's great.
He drove. So what I know Dave to be is he showed up to 2 of our events in Colorado Springs and in Sedona, Arizona. And he drove from Wisconsin. He drove from Wisconsin to Sedona, Arizona, and to Colorado Springs, and both times he brought cheese from Wisconsin for our
Oh
group, which
yeah,
is just such a fun thing.
so
So,
cliche, so cliche. Let me bring cheese. Very nice. There he
that's
goes.
great.
He's got it right there.
Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Yeah.
So one thing that we didn't talk about, we're talking about the fields, we're doing all this. What are you driving? What is your rig?
I've got so I wanted a rig that I did not have to mod a ton, that I could just go out with, which
Yeah.
was the 2020 Army Green 4Runner
Gotcha.
that I picked up, and it came with the Fox suspension. It was the TRD Pro that came pretty much with the Nitto Grappler tires and good enough to get going. I now my next mod, which I've been learning a lot about, and with the way my mind works, I usually spend a lot of time learning before I execute.
Oh my gosh, I'm the same way. Ask all the questions. I have a rule that I ask 3 people. I ask 3 people a question that like if I don't have any knowledge about it,
you gotta,
yeah, I ask 3 people because I can't trust the first person. They could be so full of shit, it's not even funny. So 3 people, I figure I can get through some of the BS and kind of, it's funny. I asked an old neighbor of mine. Well, he kind of asked me what I was going to do. A tree limb fell off. We had it cut. And he said, what are you going to put on the exposed part of that tree? Like, and I said, well, what do you suggest? And he goes, well, I usually put, and he named some type of paint. And, and I'll paint it brown, so that it's still the color of the tree, but that protects the tree from getting sick. Is basically what he was saying. He said, there's a couple different things. And he goes, are you going to do that? I said, nope. And he goes, or I said, maybe. And he goes, maybe. And I said, well, I've still got to ask 2 more people. And he goes, what? And I told him that. And he was like, that is the most ingenious thing that I've ever heard in my life. Because he said, you're right. You could be talking to a complete moron the first time you ask that question. And you don't know, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but then you find out he doesn't, or there's just other options that could be better for you. So yeah, I asked 3 people.
I love it. I mentioned someone at the beginning of this, that guy Ben with West Coast Off-Road Adventures that I had done a couple trips with. And he first told me in Death Valley back in March, he said, hey, you need some new springs there, buddy, like in the back, because I was sagging a little bit. And, I might be initially just defiant to the first time somebody says something to me, and or it takes me a minute. But
you got to sit on it.
I got to sit on it. That was in March. This friend made that comment. And I kid you not, I was walking out of Starbucks a bit ago, and I have like a negative 2-inch rake right now, which is terrible. So I'm getting it solved, and I've been doing a ton of measurements and stuff, but that was in March. We're now September. So it's taken way long for me to get this figured out. But to your point on asking people, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that boundary.
Yeah. Well, and then that way, the person doesn't get totally pissed off that I didn't do what they said. It's like, well, I gotta ask, 2 more people. And usually one of those people are my dad. I ask him usually. I trust him more than I do most people. So he's the smartest man I know. He taught me photography. He taught me so many things. So while he's still here, I'm asking him all the questions I can. So, and he's young, so I don't plan on him going anywhere anytime soon, but still, it's just, you got to ask people.
Have you been out on trips with him or taken him out anywhere?
My first camping trips were with mom and dad, now in the recent time, he is more of a hotel guy. So he wants a comfy bed. We've been on camping trips. They pull a trailer. They've got a little, camper trailer, not an off-road camper trailer, but, state parks and stuff like that. And they've been getting into that, but we are talking about going to Big Bend in Texas to do a photography trip. He has applied, both of us, for applications to go to the Wave, to go photograph that. And he needs me because he needs to be able to get there. So he knows
Nice.
that some of that's in a dirt road, and he's got a truck, he can make it. But and then we've got a hike to it. So hopefully at some point we'll get accepted. They only accept like 20 people a day to be able to hike to it and experience the wave. And if you don't know what it is, just type in the wave. And I think it's in Utah or Arizona. I can't remember what state that is in now that I'm going blank, but it's like the color of the rocks, like they have lines and they just do like this, and it's really, really pretty cool. So it's an interesting place.
Okay. Utah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's in Utah. Huh. That must be fun though, to get out there with him and to just, I suspect growing up camping looked a little different than it does now with you and the gear that you have.
We went to the lake, and he gave me my first beer ever. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. I thought it was nasty, and there was a reason why he did that at that age, because he knew I would be like, this is nasty. I don't know why you guys drink this. Yeah. And, kind of kept me away from it for a while, probably. I don't know. I ended up finding it and finding its uses later in life. Yeah. So let's do another blanket. I have a question that we can ask. If people have been paying attention, and I think this is a fairly easy question. So everybody get ready, get your fingers on your keyboard, on your phone, whatever you're doing to listen to us. What color is Matthew's Forerunner? And go. This should be so easy. we've only mentioned the color several times.
It is a nuanced question, though. It's definitely one of those.
You got to pay attention. Yeah. You can't win twice. Oh no, he said pink, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Dave has the same vehicle, so he.
Oh, that's funny. Chad, no. Dude, you were just here. Unless you walked away, we just talked about this.
Army
All right,
Green.
Facebook user. Oh my gosh. Okay, Facebook user. What's your name? It's not showing up.
It might be Scott. That might be Scott Brady. I saw a possible quote from him earlier in sounds like a book he's writing.
Okay. Wait a minute. Now I'm confused. You know what? That will show up. I think that'll show up in the actual Facebook post. If for some reason, if they don't put their name in there, then
okay, yeah. And if you
yeah, well, we'll figure that one out. So I see the timestamp on it, and that'll stay there. So we'll make sure that Facebook user gets his. Because on my screen, it just says Facebook user. I think on Facebook, it says his name. So we'll be able to find the first one. Not a problem. Not worried about it. So, all right. So Jeff Y. Okay. Yeah. Same thing. If you're on Instagram, send Matthew a message at Overland People, and we'll go from there. So,
yeah, no underscore anything, just Overland People. And then the recovery network website's overlandpeople.com. So same thing.
And go to that, be part of the community, help that grow. We're going to help you and do whatever we can. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Matthew on probably a few more times, because
this was fun.
We've talked about a couple things, like how you belong, just different things like that we can go on. I think having these types of discussions is awesome for overlanding, and I think people get a lot out of it than just, hey, this is where I went on the map last week, and then I went there, and there's more to it than just that. It's what you get out of it and what you put into it as well. So I think let's wrap it up. So what we're going to do is go to the Facebook group now and like it, share it, respond to Overland People, and then also go to www.overlandpeople. That's going to take you to the recovery group, and put your email in that. You'll be in that group with them, and we'll get to see this grow. And that's exciting also.
That sounds good. One other little thought too is if you go to overlandpeople.com/notes, I have a ton of notes there on just things that I use like Gaia, or I've got one coming up on Garmin and GPS communicators. And as someone with a tech background, I'm very nuanced in how I write these guides. So if anybody would like those, overlandpeople.com/notes,
Okay.
that'll take you just a lot of my my notes that I've kept over the years that I'm continually adding to.
All right. And then maybe when this is over, you can add to the comment on the Facebook page a link for people to be able to get to that. I think would probably be pretty easy. So anyway, dude, I'm so glad that you reached out and that we connected and we're able to have this conversation. I can't wait to talk to you again. I can't wait to camp with you at some point and hang out and, you know, experience all the feels together. Yes, that's what it's about.
Yes, sharing that space and just that feel.
That's right. Well, everybody out there, I appreciate you guys that listen, that participate. Thank you so much for being part of this community and for encouraging me and encouraging the guests that we have to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to wrap this up. And the way I always end this is whatever you do, make sure that you go all over.